Activate your energy.
Welcome to the Activated Authors Podcast, a show where we distill the core principles of what it takes to become a happy, healthy, and productive author, no matter what stage of the journey you're at. I'm your host, Daniel Willcocks. I'm an international best-selling author, as well as an author coach, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student of all things productivity, psychology, and human behavior. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. What is up, activators? And welcome back to another episode. You all right?
You almost hit me in the damn face.
Oh, I was trying. Welcome back to another episode of the Activated Authors Podcast with myself, Daniel Willcocks, and
Me, Samantha Frost. Hello.
hello, Sam Frost.
Hi.
How's
That's me. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Paul, how's it going?
I'm so tired. I am so tired. That's how it's going. I'm tired. Hi.
This is going to be a fun episode. So just
A fun
episode. So just to address, obviously we're very aware that it's Monday. Monday, the day of release as we're recording this.
Yes.
So for people who do get up early, for people who normally see this on their feeds, we give you the biggest apologies for this coming a little bit late. The last week has been very, very frantic for a multitude of reasons.
It's been insane. We've been to 1,200 different cities in 3 hours.
I'm on bed rest. I'm not. I'm on a bed right now.
We're on a bed, which is dangerous if I'm honest, because I'm tempted to just be like,
sleep.
You got this, Dan.
But it has been London Book Fair last year. Oh my God, Jesus, this is how it begins. London Book Fair last week, as you guys would have seen from the feed, from the YouTube, if you did check that out. And then we've just been out and about for like lots of sort of personal trips and bits and pieces. It was one of those weekends where it was all carefully planned and handled, and then like someone will be like, oh, this is the thing that's happening on this day that you have to go to. Oh, when is it? And they'll tell you, and you'll just go, all right, that's okay. How do I make all of this happen?
Mm-hmm. That's what you get.
And anyone watching on YouTube, apologies if you get a little bit seasick. The laptop is precariously balanced, and any movement is making it wobble. So all in all, this is a pretty professional podcast.
We've had so not sleep.
I have
so much not sleep.
Such a big ulcer that it is hurting to talk. But it's okay because it's worth it for the listeners and for reaching out and all that kind of stuff.
And for me.
And for Sam.
Yes.
So,
yes.
What's going on? What have you been up to? Apart from
all of the things last week.
Yes.
Right. Honestly, not a whole lot professionally. I have been I intentionally made the decision to put all of my shit down so that I could make sure that you were okay.
Yes.
And it's been a road of recovery, and there's still a whole heap of road left. That's just how recovery works. But I have to admit, I'm getting itchy palms and happy feet, because I know that very soon I'm going to be like diving into stuff. So I'm getting really excited about just going through all of the poetry and like starting to come up with Jessica. Yeah, so did I. Coming up with kind of like an abridged version to make the feature film.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. But honestly, up until like maybe a couple of days ago, it was about making sure that you were okay. And I would do that for anybody that like is in my life that I care for, that is, you know, in the inner circle, which is very small, even though I've had a child. That was a vagina joke. It was a vagina joke. It's not necessary. I'm
in case
tired.
You missed it.
I think like I think sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in like constantly doing things and feeling like you have to, you know, keep going. But the truth is, in either a really depressing way or a really like hope-filled way, depending on how you look at it, the world keeps spinning, whether you are creating or moving or breathing or doing anything. Everything carries on. And so what that means to me is that if I put something down for a day, a year, 10 years, the world doesn't care because it's still going to be there doing its thing when I want to pick it back up again.
For sure, yeah.
And there are more important things in life. Like there is nothing more important than the people that you hold dear and that are close to you. And so, you know, for example, if Mars got, I mean, I touch wood, I don't know.
Have you left your phone on?
No, that was your phone. You unprofessional bastard.
It's not my phone.
It's definitely your phone. I felt it vibrating in your butt pocket. Yeah, then I would care for them the same. So not had a lot going on the professional front, but I'm very excited to get into it now. And on a completely unrelated segue note, I'm just going to take your phone out of your pocket. There it is. I'm just gonna unbelievable.
For people listening, Sam has just retrieved her phone from her pocket.
I've just retrieved your phone from your pocket.
That's what I just said.
I've got a kid, so whatever.
I also have a child. Just in case people were wondering, I also still do.
I don't understand how that's relevant right now.
So how are
you? What's been going on with you?
I thought it was a little sore. It has been a journey of unpeeling all the things. So obviously, like the last 2 episodes ago, I kind of explained bits and pieces. I can't give the full picture for personal reasons, but it's been an adventure and for want of a better way, it is just a journey. So like I'm kind of very much feeling how you're feeling with the whole like itchy fingers thing. Like there are certain things that I'm excited to get back to, but I'm also very, very like something that I've said it quite a lot on this podcast and in previous podcasts because this is a recurring theme, but the amount of times that I have said, I'm doing too much, I need to pull it back, and I peeled back and I peeled back. And I'm starting to understand a lot more where a lot of those mental blocks came from and what that was.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And so one big thing that I have been doing the last month and a half is just surrounding myself with more people that I love and that I care for and that, I want to be around. And so that is being really, really helpful. And even like the London Book Fair last week, not last year.
It was.
I nearly did it again.
There was one last year, I'm sure.
There was one. I did not go. But yeah, even the London Book Fair last week was kind of just that reminder of, being around people that you admire, people you respect, people that you enjoy being around. And so, yeah, I'm very, very aware that I need to start walking again and getting back into things. But I'm also very, very, very deliberately doing the one step at a time thing and really kind of being conscious of, what is important, what is my goal, because I've got sort of 2 really big goals at this point. And so, I think it's very easy to get running on the treadmill and it's
too easy.
Yeah. And I am someone that even if, yes, I went too busy with stuff, but I'm someone
full boil.
Yeah, but I'm someone that's always enjoyed doing things and like moving and the challenge of it all. So it's just now about fixing some pieces into place in life so that I can do that at a pace.
Did you leave the sound of your computer
on? For God's sake, Faye. What are you messaging me on Slack
Trask.
for?
Not now, Trask.
Jesus. I thought I'd closed everything. Clearly I haven't.
You also thought you turned your phone on silent and you hadn't. So
we're gonna have issues for us. So yeah, it's just a whole load of unlearning. I mean, I do feel considerably better than I have the last few weeks.
Yeah.
There really is there's a tentativeness, there's a kind of wariness about returning to certain things. But ultimately, like I'm doing better. Went out for food with my family yesterday at my brother's pub and saw all family and that was lovely. And just on that, hi Joe, hi Ian.
Hi Ian.
How's it going? Just a little one for you guys. But yeah, so it's all very much a work in progress. I mean, last night I did my first live stream that I've done for a while. I mean, like it was so much fun to do. I was running on fumes because literally driven around the country this weekend for various things.
Yeah, we left here at 4 a.m. on Saturday and we got back here at just after 5 p.m. on Sunday. Yeah. And we've been to Sheffield,
4 different counties,
Birmingham, Essex. I know there was somewhere else that we went. Didn't we go? Cambridgeshire,
and here 5. So a lot of traveling. Yeah. but yeah, the live stream was really, really good. So if anyone wants to, it was myself, it was Christina Adams and Ellie Betts from the Writer's Mindset podcast. It was Matty Dalrymple from the Indie Author podcast, and we were talking all things writing ghost stories. So I got to kind of be in my wheelhouse there of monsters and fear and creating creepy tales. So that's all on YouTube. You can check that out on the Writer's Mindset YouTube, and I'm sure we'll probably pop a link in the show notes. I'll do it. Don't worry. And yeah, so that's it. We won't do key takeaways this week because we're kind of baking that into the episode. But we will do our win of the week is this week from MEB, who has put out her 7th book in her series.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm so proud of Emmy. Like, Emmy is one of those people, like, obviously there's, billions of people in the world. We know this.
8 billion.
Too many. That's about 7.5 billion people too many. I wish the world was populated like Iceland is populated.
With sheep.
With just sparsely.
Okay.
Not just going for sparsely.
That works.
But like, you meet a few different types of people as you journey through life. You get the people that are all talk and do nothing. You get the people that are all talk and do what they say they're going to do. You get the people that say nothing and like just like do everything. And then you get some other people, which I can't think of right now because I'm too tired. Emmy's the person that is just like such a gorgeous human. Like, she will be there for anybody and everybody. She is like psychic. She is psychic. She just tends to drop me or Dan a message like on a day when we're feeling down, like, I feel like you, and you're like, back away, witch. No, joking, Emmy, I love you. But she's like
Banner.
She's like
don't please don't ever isolate that clip.
No, I won't. There's so much in my head that I'm not going to say. But she's incredible, and she works like a pack horse.
Yes,
like, it's insane. She is just the type of person that will show you what she's done as opposed to talk about it. It's just like, oh yeah, what did you do that in that sprint, Emmy? 12 novels. Cool.
Yeah.
But yes, massive congratulations. I mean,
yes, well done.
And thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. I'm so sorry.
We're back. So this week's episode is a little bit of a break from the typical sort of question formula. It's more just a celebration of the fact we kind of realized that we've missed the year of the podcast. We've had the year of Activated Authors. That was one of our episodes. But yeah, so the podcast officially hit people's feeds on the 26th of January in 2022. I'm not remembering this. I did look this up before the episode.
Okay.
And the first episode went live with Jonathan Yanez on the 14th of February. So me and him had a little Valentine's date on the feed.
Do you know what I did on Valentine's Day this year?
I do.
I had a smear test.
And then since then,
yours was better than mine.
I don't remember what I did.
Well, I mean, no, it wasn't this Valentine's, but you spent it with Yanez.
Pokemon. Oh, the Yanez thing, yeah, and played Pokemon. And so we've done. The podcast. I guess episode 1 was the 14th of February. So we missed that boat. That's fine. A lot has been going on clearly. And I think this is episode potentially 57.
Oh, 58. One of them.
So around the late 50s. So we have also missed the year mark, but. Like, as you rightly pointed out the other day, it's kind of would be a bit of a shame to not in some way address it, to nod to say, here's a year of the Activated Authors podcast. And it's been a ride. It's been a ride so far. So like for those who have listened since the beginning, obviously, like I have podcasted for a while now. My podcast journey began with a podcast called The Story Studio, which me and Luke Condor began in, I want to say 2016, but I think it might have been 2017. And we did 50 episodes, and we interviewed lots of amazing people. We had a lot of sort of like one-offs like we do here, sort of just discussing writing stuff. And I make no secret with the Activated Authors that podcast, when I listen back to myself, is very much me pretending to be a writer. It's like I knew bits and pieces of craft from university, from college, all that kind of stuff. But it was very much like a lot of the lessons, like looking back, I'm like, I can feel myself and I can hear myself pretending to be the person that I thought that the audience deserved when it came to writing podcasts. And it was where I got my first sort of taste for interviewing people and just like having fun and asking those questions. And then episode 50, we kind of stopped that because I started getting very, very into writing and collaborating, and like the writing was more important for me, especially at that point in the podcast. It was similar with Luke. Luke started doing a lot more projects. And then I, in 2018, started 2018, when I went full-time as an author, I started the Great Writer Share podcast. 2019, I went full-time. In one of the years.
2019, I think. Because we're 2023
it was
now.
No, so the Great Writer Share started a bit before I went full-time. So I started the Great Writer Share podcast with the idea of sharing great writers, and interviewed a lot of people on there, met some awesome people. At one point, obviously brought on people like Faye Trask, people like Holly Line, people like John Crinan into doing the group experience. And then that dropped because of personal. I'm starting to notice a trend. That dropped because of.
I love that you're starting to notice it.
Turbulent personal life stuff. And then obviously myself and Sasha then did the Next Level Authors podcast, and I think it was really around that podcast.
The much beloved,
the much missed. And it was really around that time of doing that podcast. Oh, this looks like I'm being really casual, but I'm getting cramp in my foot. So it's really around this time that I no, it was around that time that, like, so over the years I've felt myself peel away the layers of what I think people expected to hear, because the episodes in which I've been vulnerable, in which I've kind of really been honest and shared my journey, are the ones that people react to the most. And so that really was what Next Level Authors was for me, and was for Sasha at the time. Was it was us sharing who we are, sharing the journey from a much less professionalized standpoint,
from the real point.
And it was nice. Just it was very easy for me, the podcast, just to sit down and to do, and we had a very specific reason for why we did it. And then obviously, going into January 26th of this year, going like, okay, so I miss interviewing people. I do enjoy these kind of formats of podcasts, and they are very, very straightforward to do. So let's jump back in, sort of share more of that gospel, share more of that message. And I think at that point was really when I started to embrace not just the craft side of stuff, but the sort of lifestyle side of what it is to be an author, because so much of it is mental challenges, so much of it is endurance, is habit, is routine, is community, is all of these things that not everyone pays attention to, because when you get into writing, it's reading and it's craft and it's telling the story. But in order to do that stuff, you have to create a life raft beneath you of this other stuff, so you can keep going. So we had 6 months of interviews, and then personal life got turbulent. And so we found a way to keep the podcast going that was a bit more easy to produce, and such as introducing Sam Frost.
Just hit me in the face again.
Well, you're so close. I know where you are. I'm not going to hit you.
Little shitbag.
But yeah, so you obviously came onto the podcast, and that was very specific, because not only do I know that you very much enjoy the camera and you're very easy to talk to on this stuff. I mean that in a very, very nice way.
I know that you're vain, and that you like seeing yourself and hearing yourself talk. No, I mean, all of these things are true.
Yeah. But also it is those two perspectives of, you're yet to publish a book. I've published a fair whack of books. And, you pointed that out months ago in Activated Authors. Like, it's very, very useful having someone who, if I'm talking about, cost per click and Facebook advertising and BookBub and all this kind of stuff, there are people in the audience who aren't yet at that point that know what that means. So having you as the avatar to be like, Dan, what?
So what's a BookBub?
Explain what that is.
Why are people costing for clicks?
Why are they costing for clicks? Because money makes the world go
round. People want to know why costing the clicking is happening.
Ad. So yeah, it seems to work, and the fact that you help out a hell of a lot with the Activated Author stuff, like the people know you, everything else, like it just seemed to work as a way to do these podcasts weekly, keep sharing that information, that knowledge, and absolutely, like I think I at some point would like to get back to some of the interview style bits. But it's everything's on hold and has been pushed back right now because I just need to figure other stuff out first. But that's a little history of where this podcast has come from.
And I think you're right. Like, we've spoken before about having mini seasons of interviews around particular topics. So for example, I don't know, like writing horror as like a 6-episode season of that, where like this format would take a hiatus. Like we don't know whether I'd still jump on and talk before and after. We haven't like hashed
We haven't
out
nailed it down.
But like just to have those kind of mini seasons with viewpoints from other writers that, you know, are experts in that kind of area, whether that is like craft, whether it is marketing, business, just like how you can live as healthily as is possible as an author. Was that your tummy?
That was my stomach, yes.
And then kind of come back to this, and then so it's like a plethora, I guess, a smorgasbord.
Yeah, I think at its heart, we're not afraid to experiment. We're not afraid to try new things. You know, it's all in service of what you, the listener, will get the most value from this podcast. And
Look at my face.
And so, like, that's one of the beautiful things. One of the beautiful things about interviewing people is obviously you get very specific perspective on an individual and their journey and what they've done, and you know the different ways that you can be as an author. The advantage of doing the question format we've been doing is that we can get really we can really nail down on particular areas that people might struggle with. But also we've been very, very specific the last 6 months with these questions to be like, okay, there's at the minute in all of the podcasts and things I've done, there's not been any sort of core base questions for new authors.
Yeah.
That, you know, once we grow this podcast, once we do more stuff with it, you know, where can they go to learn this foundational stuff, which is universal? Like, it's not going to expire. None of the advice that we've given over the last 6 months has changed since I came into the game in 2014. And so, you know, we've been building this, coming back to the raft analogy, we've been building this raft of, you know, what can you do as a new author? How can you enter into this arena? And yeah, you know, we, full transparency, we've not really discussed much of what happens next yet. We've got like, I'm taking this week and possibly a little bit next week to really nail down what I'm looking at for the next sort of 6 months to a year, because again, I can't emphasize this enough, like nothing has been in my head for the past 6 weeks.
No, good.
Yeah, to the point that, and I shared this with you this morning, to the point that for the first time in months I'm actually like having very, very vivid dreams, which is a sign that my brain is relaxing a bit, which is very, very nice. So yeah, like, it's, you know, if you guys have anything specific that you want to see from us, if there's anything that you think will be beneficial, like whether that's questions, whether that's guests, whatever that is, there is a page on Activated Authors for the podcast. I might put a little question button on there at some point, or if not, just go to the contact page and just get in touch.
Or leave a comment on the YouTube video, or find either
or find either of us.
Find either of us on Instagram, or the Activated Authors.
Or the Activated Authors Instagram.
Instagram, you are a dick.
Or just join us on Slack for 30 days.
Yeah.
And see us directly. So yeah, it's, I don't know what the point of that was.
What's been your favourite episode? What's been your favourite interview so far?
Segue. Boom. I like it.
Thank you. And I just in case all of our previous guests are listening, I don't mean your favourite person. I just mean like the favourite like interview, or at least a favourite section from a favourite interview, something that stands out in your memory.
Well, it's me, so it's going to be a few of them. And as you say, like every single one of them absolutely loved, had value in. I think there are always going to be ones that you lean a bit more towards because they're either in your genre, or you know they just kind of click. And so obviously we've had Luke on.
Yeah, favorite child.
Always a delight. You've been on. That was fun. We've you're still on. Oh my God,
I am the
interview that never ends.
On giving.
But then a few sort of standout ones, like I always love speaking to Jay Thorne. He's always a delight, and I'm very, very excited to meet him in about, I think it's like 6-7 weeks.
Yes, of course.
Going to meet him in the flesh for the first time, which will be fun, as well as Zach and TW Piper Brooke. But I think two of the standout ones for me really were Tim Leben, because I'm a big fan of his work. I met him at ChillaCon last year, and he's just a very, very lovely guy. I'm hoping that he'll also be in StokerCon this year. We'll find out. And Kathy Murray was an absolute delight. So
Kathy Murray is one of mine. Yeah,
having Kathy on there, and you know her energy, like she does all this fitness stuff as well as, you know, writing these books about her experience coaching the cheerleaders and everything else. That was one of those ones where I didn't know much about Kathy beforehand, and she pitched to come on onto the show, and like just from start to finish, I was like, this is a very lovely person.
Love her.
How about yourself?
For me, I think it would be Chris Kane and Kathy Murray. Like I always like
Chris.
Yeah, I love Chris. I love her anti-capitalist agenda.
We didn't really talk so much about that on
no, but I just saying I love that. I really appreciate seeing a single mom that like knows her shit and is not shy to share the fact that she's still figuring stuff out, even like with the success that she's had, and all of the rest of it. Like, she's very down to earth, and she has been through such a whirlwind, such a journey. And I think some people that can manifest in different ways, but for her, she's really taken to heart the lessons of what burnout is, what it means to like live a life for yourself and for your kid, and also, you know, go after the things that you want. But she does it in a way that I feel is just so refreshing, and she speaks about all of this stuff in a very open way, and there's no kind of toxic productivity stuff.
She's not scared to push back either. Like,
no,
if
she isn't.
If someone is spreading what she considers to be a dangerous message, she will kind of raise her voice and say, you know, this might not be useful for everyone, because we've said a lot on here that, you know, there's one advice that will work for someone is not going to work for absolutely everyone.
Oh,
and
Jesus,
you have
no.
to find your rhythm, your routine, the people you resonate with, like, because of your life. Like, everyone's got a different life and way of being. So I agree. Chris is always a pleasure to talk to.
And then Kathy, for much the same reasons, I found her just incredibly inspirational. Like, the woman is just a bit of a legend. And I mean, when especially just the stories that she was saying about, like, when she first put it out, and you know, I was about to say pushback then, because you just said it, the overt and disgusting racism that she faced, like, day in, day out,
just to do a job,
you know, just for leaving the house. I think to get through everything she got through and to achieve the success that she has, and then of course as well to write the book and still have this childlike wonder and energy and like hunger to learn and all of it. Like, she's
not done.
No, you
can tell she's not done.
It's very inspirational to me, because I think no one could blame her if she had become like jaded or bitter or just angry at the world. Like, abso-fucking-lutely, like, she has every reason to be, but she's chosen a different way. And I'm not saying either's right or wrong, but just for me personally, I find her incredibly inspirational.
I mean, as you say, the plethora of guests has been awesome. Like, just the people jumping on, just Jonathan Yanez is always like, there's a reason that I picked him to begin with, just because his vibe works very, very well for me.
His vibe is very much, if you've seen the film Central Intelligence with The Rock and Kevin Hart, there is a bit at the beginning where, like, so Dwayne Johnson,
The Rock,
he, like, in the film, his character at high school was incredibly like fat,
rotund,
big, like a really big kid, and got bullied horribly for it because kids are the worst. And then how's it going? And then just for those listening and not watching, Dan is trying to
I have very long legs. I'm in quite a cramped space right now.
You're the one that made the space.
I did make the space.
Anyway, and they meet up for like a reunion, and he's turned, like I say, from this very like large child into, well, the Rock. And Chris Hart's kind of like, oh my God, man, like, what did you do? What did I just say?
Chris.
Did I say Chris Hart?
Yeah.
Kevin Hart. He's like, oh my God, like, what did you do? And he's like, I just exercise 6 hours a day every day for the past 20 years. Like, anyone can do it, right?
Yeah.
that's but he's like got such this childlike joy with it. Like, that's Yanez for me. He's just like, he loves what he does. He's hungry. He gets so much joy from it, whether that's his work, his family, his kids, like the gym, like whatever it is. And because he's so passionate about it, he's like, oh, it's just you just sacrifice anything that isn't absolutely essential to like loving life, and just do that all the time. Anyone can do it, right? I just I've got a lot of love for you.
Yeah, it's just a lovely human. But yeah, so over the last year, as we say, we've spoken to a lot of people. We've had lots
Ooh.
of episodes between us two.
Yeah.
Are there any particular takeaways or learning points that, you know, how have you changed in the last year, whether that's because of activated authors or kind of within this creative space?
Well, there's definitely been some big personal things, like really big challenges through last year and this year. And I think because of that, and those kind of running parallel with the podcast, for me, I've really, number one, found out what I'm made of when it comes to situations in my personal life where people that I love are being attacked or are under threat, in danger, like not doing well. And just full transparency, this isn't me just like trying to covertly explain what's been happening in Dan's turbulent personal life.
No.
This is like different situation that was very personal to me. And so I found out like that I am capable of just standing strong on my legs, even if like my knees are shaking.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a nice lesson to learn. It was horrific, but it's good to know. But I think from a creative perspective, which also kind of fits in with my own personal stuff, is that I've really, really doubled down on the idea that no one can tell me how I do my own shit.
Mm.
And I realized that the way I phrased that sounded aggressive, but from listening to all these different interviews, from discussing all these different topics, it really does drive home that there is no one right way to do anything, and that like there's never going to be one person that you look up to that does everything exactly the way that you want to do it. You know, even like Christina Aguilera, my favorite singer of all time. I've probably mentioned this a few times on the show. I imagine it will come up again. I idolize that woman. Like, she is incredible, but there will be things in her life that she does things that are not for me. Just because you love someone and you idolize them, or like you really respect how their work or their work ethic or whatever, it doesn't mean that you can merge into like that person and do everything the way they do it, because it's not going to work for you because you are not them. So
I bet she eats milk chocolate cookies.
I bet she does eat milk chocolate chip cookies, and that upsets me. I have an aversion to chocolate chip cookies. The big soft ones, I do not like
the best
them.
ones.
They're gross.
The best
They're
ones.
gross. I like the little crunchy ones. Anyway, that's by the by.
By the by. We're not ending.
So yeah, for me, it really has been a case of that validation of everybody does things differently, which means that there is nothing wrong with how I'm doing things. And just because like a really, best-selling author does it this way, it doesn't mean I have to do it that way, because the next best-selling author next to them does it completely different. Like, obviously there are fundamentals and foundations. Like, to be a best-selling author, number one, you have to, be an author and write and do the book and stuff. Although with AI, who knows? But yeah, it really is, for me, it's just that hammering back down on, I know myself. When it's just me and it's quiet and I'm listening to myself, I know at my core who I am, what I want to do. And maybe I don't know yet exactly like my process for everything, but I sure as hell know the way I don't want to do things. And things that don't work for me. And I think really that over this past year, that's really come into a sharper focus for me, is that like I don't have to do things like other people just because other people do them that way.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that's, I mean, there's been so many like little revelations and lessons that I've learned and things that I've taken away from interviews. But the like when we were talking about this beforehand, and we were kind of saying what we were thinking, like there is nothing that comes even close. That was the first thing that like just screamed in my brain.
Yeah.
So that's for me. What about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, just on yours as well, I think part of why it's awesome to be in an author community like Activated Authors is the fact that you get to see everyone's different perspectives. So, you know, even the podcast aside, within the community itself, everyone's doing something slightly different. Everyone's got their own way of doing it. Everyone's got, you know, their own battles to contend with, their own things that they thrive in. And so, like, I do think having that kind of top perspective of being around all these people, you can start to go like, they're doing something I like, not that. And excuse me. And to be honest, I think mine is going to be very, very similar to yours in the sense of with all of the health stuff that's happened over the last few weeks, and even like a few months before that, one of the big things, because it is frustrating for me that I can't really get fully into some of the stuff, but like it came down to a point where I was like, I had to ask myself a very, very specific question. Am I doing what I need to do in order to hit X goal? And I ended up like really taking sharp focus, looking in the mirror and going like, no, I'm not. Which is kind of like some of the inception for some of the changes over the last few months. And it's that thing of, you know, if that's the thing that I'm trying to achieve, what do I then need to do to achieve that? And it's those moments when you're out of alignment with what you need to do. And we've already kind of spoken a little bit earlier about, you know, being on that treadmill and you just kind of, you know, I'm kind of say this stuff, like one of the big factors that led to me ending up in hospital, I'm very, very aware, is the fact that I was on that treadmill, but not just that I was on that treadmill, but like I was in a house by myself with like no support network around me really. And so day after day that compounds, but your brain is a bitch in the sense that like it normalizes day by day the things going on. So hindsight's 2020, and I can now look at like the 2-3 months before that and like see physical signs of, you know, this oncoming moment. But like since then it's really been a case of, you know, I've not really had like perfect quiet to stop and think yet. But there's definitely been a lot of just contemplation around like, okay, what are my goals? What is going to serve me to get there? And even in visiting the London Book Fair last week and speaking to, like, I had a chat with Barry Hutchinson, people now know as like JD Kirk with all these award-winning Scottish thrillers. It's just a very strong reminder that number one, my goal is different to a lot of people's. Number two, just because I lead an author community doesn't necessarily mean that I have to fall into what it means to be like that kind of industry expert. There's a lot of people with communities that are, you know, giving this advice, and they have very, very specific ways, and there are things that they're doing to, you know, grow and develop and do all that kind of stuff. And I hope one of the reasons that people are drawn to Activated Authors is because I'm doing things differently, is really what my hope is. And so, you know, things like the London Book Fair, I don't know that I'd go again next year. Maybe I would, maybe I won't. But my interest now is a lot more in like, how can I really nail down the craft of horror and find like the home in horror? You know, I'm going to StokerCon, which is the huge Horror Writers Association conference in June.
I'm so excited for you.
It's going to be like, I'm very, very excited for it.
I'm also very excited that I'm not going.
Put in a room of 2,000 freaks.
No, thank you. I have to look at my own freak in the mirror. That was me circling my own face.
But yeah, I mean, at its core, you know, I've not put out a new book really in a year and a half, coming up to 2 years. And that has been something that has quietly been annoying me and bubbling away inside me, because
it's been eating you from the inside out
because of that like ridiculous production that then, you know, I've got people going, oh my God, you did that. And they look up to you with like admiring eyes. And I'm like, I must keep this avatar going. And, you know, I can write fast. And if I want to, I will. But honestly, the novella that I wrote towards the end of, the beginning of this year?
I think it was kind of bridging the 2 years.
Is one of my most favorite things I've ever written.
It's gorgeous.
And I've got a few more ideas for little things that I want to play with over the coming months. Like I'm writing something in a minute, but like it's all of that stuff where I have to remind myself that in the early days, and the reason that I started writing was because I enjoyed the art of writing. And so I'm just working hard at the minute to take that pressure off, to get back into the love of the writing itself.
You're working hard to not work as hard.
Yeah. And it's that just alignment. The whole thing's so similar to yours. Like it's the same thing. So yeah, with the podcast, speaking to all of these different people, it's always lovely to get, you know, new bits of advice from people. You get to see people's perspectives. Again, like surprises like Kathy Murray they're always fun. And then the episodes that we do together, for me, it's very much a fundamental reminder of those foundations.
Yes.
And a reminder to myself of how far I've come, because I can quite easily now have these conversations. And, you know, whether it's imposter syndrome, whatever it is, you get to a point where you forget that you've got this breadth of experience behind you,
and that you've worked through so much shit
yeah,
to get to that point. Because like it's easy to say, like you have worth, you're valid, like you only feel like you're an imposter because you're not. But like it takes work and time to get to a place where you can internalize that. And of course, then, like we said in that episode, every new room you put in, that demon will come back up. And I think, just to kind of hit on what you said about alignment, that is one of the fundamental things, I think, of living a life of contentment as your as your like base plate. Because like there's if you think of a pendulum, I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert that I saw doing this, a talk on how she dealt with the success of Eat, Pray, Love, because she said it's just as much a grief
how
as
do you follow up
crazy,
on a
exactly,
best-selling phenomenon.
Like you want your pendulum to rest in a place of peace and contentment. Like happiness, joy, all of these things are beautiful, but you cannot sustain life there, because it's they are fleeting emotions. But contentment is something, I think, to aim for. And I think to have that, to have contentment with who you are and where you are, is number one, it's about accepting yourself, and forgiving yourself, and all of that work that is so important for us to do to not bleed on other people. But I think as well, it's very much about aligning, like you say, what you want and who you are internally with what you are going for and who you are presenting externally. It's integrity. It's about being the same inside and outside. And it's so easy, because this world is that we live in now is so busy all of the time. It's so loud, whether it's like social media or the 5,000 emails a day you get from school,
or the government texting the world at 3 p.m. yesterday.
Yeah, just in case there's forest fires. Like there's so much all of the time that wasn't around like 100 years ago. The world was less populated. There was less ways of just instantly like getting at people. And so it's very easy, I think, to stumble out of alignment, to think that actually you want something that fundamentally, if you take a second and a breath, you realize that that isn't important to you. When I was a kid, I always thought I wanted to be famous, and it used to upset me that I wasn't. And then actually, when I got to a place of understanding and work, I realized that fame had nothing to do with it. What I wanted was acceptance and love. And my child brain went, well, famous people, everybody loves famous people. But of course, like, that's not bullshit. Really. Well, there's bullshit. Yeah, they don't like, and like wanting to be famous, like that's not a career. That's not a choice you get to make. Like, so as I grew, I realized like, no, actually what I want is to be around people that see me for who I am, and in spite of all that craziness, still choose to stick around and love me for who I am. And I want people in my life that I can reciprocate that with. And that is a big part of kind of like finding your baseline and your grounding, and just really trying to like come back to that. Because again, just to come back to alignment, like when you are out of alignment with who you are internally and who you are externally, that is a lot of problems are going to come from that.
Yeah. It's a perfect I saw a video the other day that perfectly demonstrated that, and it was this tuning fork it had a ping pong ball on a bit of a string balanced perfectly next to it, and then the tuning fork was set at something like 420 kilohertz, and then a guy hit one that was like 540 kilohertz and nothing happened, and then he hits a 420 kilohertz and it starts making the ball bounce off of the other fork, because you've got these vibrations, these lines and things. Not getting too woo-woo about it, but like it's right. If you're in conflict with yourself, you're going to cause yourself pain.
Yes.
And whether that's conscious or unconscious, like if reach a point of discomfort, then do a bit of soul searching and look at that. I would also recommend I watched Lewis Capaldi's Netflix documentary a week or two ago, and that very much it spoke to me. In obviously I'm not Lewis Capaldi level of fame and success and everything else, but it spoke to me in the sense of his first album blew things away, like had amazing songs, and then the documentary tracks him trying to write a second album and basically just collapsing into mental health issues, because again, like, how do you follow up on a bestseller? And for me, it's that thing of the more visible you get, the more you start to worry about what other people think, even though like I really try not to, because it feels like there's much more at stake. And I guess there is, depending on what your goal is and how you view it, but I'm really trying to bring myself back to that first book, that shutting yourself in a room, writing it, and just being like, you know, whatever this does, it does. Like,
because the reason it did so well is that like you were focusing on what you wanted to do and not if people cared or not. And it's difficult then to sit back down and not care if people care, because you know people care,
because there are much more people who are vocal these days. Not just like in general, but like within activated authors, within like writers of horror and the other stuff that I do. So yeah, the question I would probably ask next, I don't think we can answer at this point, which is, at this point, whenever I've done like an anniversary episode, it's always been, well, what's next for activated authors and the podcast? And the reality is, as we kind of mentioned earlier, we don't know at this point. So I'm going to be spending a week or two just really like nailing down and trying to figure out my life, because I've not had that time yet. And so, you know, hopefully many more episodes to come.
Yes, please.
Potentially some more interviews. And I think one thing that I would like to see more of is, you know, audience involvement, questions, that kind of stuff, to see what we can get. So, you know, we've had Flash Fiction February this year. We did the Writers for Ukraine Challenge last year. Potentially some more of those things up in the works. So we will see. But right now, we're very much in stasis. We've just come out of cryo sleep.
Yeah, we've just...
We're having breakfast, thawing out a little bit. We're doing the Austin Powers, like, never-ending piss.
Yeah. Evacuation.
Evacuation.
On stickers on one of Mars bar.
But yeah, I think, you know, broadly speaking, just to bring this to a close, thank you for listening to the show and for sticking with us. And from everyone who's, you know, been there from the story studio with me, people who've joined, you know, Sam, and just anyone that's listened, commented, gotten involved, whether that's silently, like told other people about the podcast, come on and, you know, been part of the Activated Authors community. Just a massive thank you, because it is really, it's humbling getting to a point in which, you know, people are actually listening, because especially very early on, it's a lot of shouting into the void. And if I do generally think, like, if I hadn't have done that with Luke, it wouldn't have happened, because it was like, having Luke in the driver's seat with me was very much like, even if no one's listening, like, I've got Luke and we can chat and have that fun. And like, so like, this is why I think these kind of formats work well as well, because you know, your solo shows rocked, as people clearly pointed out, but they also said it was nothing without me. So like, you need the witty bants, otherwise it does nothing. Like,
you dickhead. You're such a dickhead.
People actually said the opposite and said that I'm going to struggle to wrestle the mic and the power back from Sam. So, I mean, that might be right. Who knows?
Just honestly,
you don't want it, I think, is the key thing.
Yeah. I prefer
it's not whether you can.
It.
It's more just like, I don't really want that responsibility.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Like, I'm going to be honest, for an author's podcast, that was basically the topic I could talk about on my own.
Camera.
I've got this. Camera. Right. Let's do it. But yeah, just very, very quickly, because obviously we're rounding off. Thank you. Because we got...
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Ian.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Joe and Ian. We got a couple of comments on YouTube recently.
I've replied to them.
Have you?
I've jumped in.
They were really lovely.
Yes.
So I just wanted to say thank you for that. But yeah, I think that brings it to a close for now.
I mean, watch this space. We'll be back to typical programming next week.
Yes. And typical scheduling.
Typical scheduling. Yes. And just once again, like, thank you to everyone who has been patient throughout the last sort of 6-7 weeks. Everyone in Activated Authors. Absolutely, like, massively love you guys and appreciate you guys. Eden and Emmy specifically for keeping things running behind the scenes, and you as well for everything that you've done. So yes, we'll round off there. So I've forgotten the outro. ActivatedAuthors.com. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Never.
Activate your energy.
Thanks for listening to the Activated Authors podcast. If you're ready to unlock your true potential and activate your author career, then head on over to www.activatedauthors.com to find out more.